Since the network's last gathering, we have more than tripled in size. So that is something else to celebrate. We couldn't be happier than to welcome a group of over 130 talented and passionate people to engage together, reflect together, and learn from one another as we share this time here together at Rendezvous 2024. Our theme this year celebrates the amazing ways each of you lead with love in your communities. So thank you all again for being here. We are so happy to be in community together to share love and connection. And without further ado, please enjoy our Rendezvous Kickoff with the Recovery Cafe co-founder, Killian No.
When I was in my early 20s, 21 to be exact, I served as a volunteer in the Middle East. While there, I met this super cute teacher and runner named Bernie. He was from Boston. For me, it was love at first sight. We started running together, and after running together for about 2 weeks, I said to Bernie, remember that first day we met? I remember thinking, I really like this guy. What were you thinking that first day? Bernie paused and responded, I was thinking, she really likes me. So even though I'm meeting many of you in person for the first time, I'm thinking I really like you. This morning's reflection will be broken up into 3 parts. So I'll give a little reflection content, then you'll be able to talk around your table about it. Then another little reflection, talk around the table, and then another reflection, talk around the table. If you don't like that format, talk to Maddie. This morning, I want us to reflect in all 3 sessions, in 3 segments, on this underlying question, which is really at the heart of the spiritual recovery journey. Do I live more from love than from fear? Many of the world's great spiritual traditions teach us to bring simple awareness to our thoughts, feelings, and responses. So this morning, we will be working with, in this first segment, with 3 questions related to that. Questions that help raise our awareness about whether I live more from love than from fear. The first question we'll work with is, do I trust there will be enough? In other words, do I live with a sense of scarcity or abundance? Most of us, whether we're conscious of it or not, operate somewhere on the continuum between an assumption of scarcity and an assumption of abundance. An assumption of abundance is a way of living with a healthy amount of trust that everything we truly need to become the people we were created to become will somehow be given. It is living with trust that even the things in our lives which we would not have chosen can somehow be used for good. The scarcity assumption tells us, maybe on a subconscious level, if that person is loved, I must be less loved. If that person gets attention, there won't be enough attention for me. If that person is special, then I must be less special. If that person's basic needs for health care, housing, education, and employment are met, there may not be enough to meet my needs. In truth, there really is enough for everyone. Enough love, enough attention, enough resources to provide for everyone's basic needs. But when we operate out of the scarcity assumption, when we act as if there is not enough to go around, when we act as if we are not all part of the same human family, it in fact causes scarcity for millions of people worldwide. Most of you have at least heard the story of Jesus turning 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish into enough to feed 5,000 people. If you were raised in the church, like I was, you were probably taught that the miracle that happened that day was that the loaves and fish literally multiplied, and there was enough for everyone to have a fish fillet sandwich with baskets of fish fillet sandwiches left over. What the story tells us is that Jesus invited everyone to sit down in small groups. What if, once everyone was seated in small circles, like our recovery circles, people began to see each other, really see each other? What if the miracle that happened that day was that once people were sitting across from each other, truly seeing each other, everyone began to dig a little deeper into their own backpacks and began to pull out whatever gifts they had to share? What the story tells us is that there was an abundance. As you know, one of our membership agreements states that everyone is a contributor. We know how important it is for our members and for all of us to contribute, to share our gifts with the whole. I can't help but wonder what miracles might occur in our cafes if we found new, consistent ways for people with financial abundance to sit across from members experiencing dehumanizing scarcity. I wonder what it would mean for our cafes, for both groups to claim at a new level that we belong to each other. I can't help but imagine the new ways we might hold space for more people to see that there is no us and them, there is only us, all of us. As you all know, an important part of our mission is to help the larger community see the suffering of the most vulnerable and take in the truth that every person's gifts are needed. For example, part of our mission is helping the larger community see what happens when people are incarcerated instead of treated for substance use and other mental health challenges. And part of our mission is to shine the light on the reality that Black males continue to be incarcerated at least 6 times the rate of white males, and a host of other injustices that systemic racism perpetuates. In short, Recovery Cafe from its inception has been absolutely clear about our call to stand with those who are left out, those who suffer scarcity in so many ways, so that one day there will be no one left out. Now, as a network of over 65 recovery cafes, we can live that call with greater impact and intentionality. In 1996, when welfare was dismantled, leaving millions without a safety net, a group of us participated in a nonviolent protest in Washington, D.C., in the Capitol Rotunda. We were arrested. As they were processing us in D.C.'s jail, I said to my mentor, Gordon Cosby, "Gordon, I feel a little hypocritical protesting the dismantling of welfare without presenting an alternative." He said, "We have to create communities that are the alternative." Our call is to create communities that are an alternative to unjust systems so that our nation can see what it looks like when no one is left out. And in seeing what's possible, those unjust systems can ultimately be transformed. You probably don't remember this, but there was a time, I say those of you who are younger than me may not remember this, but there was a time when no one thought that the human body could run a sub-4-minute mile. No one. And then one day, I believe it was Roger Bannister was the first, he did. And then right after he did, people started running 4-minute miles like crazy. That's what I mean by people have to see what's possible, what it looks like when we live like we belong to each other. And then, who knows how our nation will be transformed. Creating cafe communities is one way we participate in a nonviolent protest against systems that oppress and exclude. Another mentor, Walter Brueggemann, put it this way: our call is to tell the truth in a society that lives in illusion, to grieve in a society that practices denial, and to remain hopeful in a society stuck in despair. At this time, we're going to take a few minutes around the table to work with the question, do I trust there will be enough, or do I live with a sense of scarcity? What do I fear most that there won't be enough of? And what helps me trust there will be enough? Thank you. Okay. I know, it's not enough time. I know, it's not enough time. But we are going to move on to the next question, and then you will have opportunities to reconnect with anyone you want to. So the next question, do I trust that I am enough? Do any of you ever wonder, am I enough? If you sometimes fear you are not enough, you're among the 95% of humans who fear that. Recently, a 62-year-old woman shared with me that all her life she has been trying to earn her mother's love. She made good grades as a kid, she learned a musical instrument, and excelled at soccer. She took care of her mom's needs in the final years before her mom died. But none of those things made her feel she was enough. How do we combat that nagging feeling that we are not enough? I'd like to offer just 2 reminders. Once, as Picasso was leaving a Parisian cafe, a woman handed him a pen and paper, and she asked, "Will you please sketch a portrait of me?" Picasso took the pen and paper and sketched a portrait, returned it to her, and said, "That'll be $1 million." She exclaimed, "It only took you 30 seconds to sketch this." Picasso responded, "Yes, but it took me 30 years to learn how to do what I just did in 30 seconds. I want to remind us that each of us has 30 years or 5 years or 2 years or whatever the number is of lived experience that we bring to the work and offer as our gift. Our lived experience may be with substance use recovery, or with recovery from trauma, or with recovery from whatever blocks our capacity to love. Anybody need recovery in that area? But make no mistake, whatever we are recovering from, and we are recovering from many things, we bring the gift of our lived experience to this movement. We bring the gift of our authentic selves, which is worth more than $1 million. It's priceless. I recently read a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. Do you know what the most common regret was? Most regretted they had not lived their authentic selves. They regretted they had not made themselves more vulnerable by sharing both their struggles and their gifts. Sometimes sharing our gifts makes us feel more vulnerable than sharing our struggles. I mean, why is that? Maybe we compare our gifts to the gifts of others. We must become conscious of all self-judgments, negative scripts, and limiting beliefs about ourselves so that those self-negating thoughts can be transformed. We must stay on the journey from self-rejection to self-acceptance, from self-loathing to a healthy self-love. If we are to love those in our communities in the ways they need to be loved. There will always be someone whose gifts in a certain area are stronger than ours in that same area. The good news is it's not important for our gifts to be stronger than others, we know. And we don't have to have all the gifts. Yes, we can develop the gifts we have, but for now, we simply need to be willing to lead at the point of whatever gifts we have and follow at the point of others' gifts. We are all leaders. And whatever our particular gifts are, our worth is not dependent on those gifts anyway. Which brings me to the second reminder related to fearing we are not enough. In the 1980s, our nonprofit in Washington, D.C., called Samaritan Ends, was given no choice but to sue the District of Columbia for violation of the fair housing laws of the Civil Rights Amendment. The case ended up in federal court in a 13-day trial, at the end of which the judge ruled that the D.C. government had acted in gross violation of the fair housing laws. The precedent-setting case has been used across the U.S. in support of fair housing. One day, during that 13-day trial, my mentor, Gordon, showed up in the courtroom to offer support. When there was a court recess, he asked me, "How are you holding up?" I replied, "Honestly, I have never felt so profoundly inadequate in all my life." He shot back something like this: "Good, because when you feel inadequate, that is a reminder to go deep and let love force lead." Love force, as you know, is what Martin Luther King Jr. called the power of unconditional love at the core of our beings. It is not just in some of us, it is in all of us. Letting love force lead requires committing to at least one daily practice that keeps us conscious of our connection to that place of unconditional love at our core. We need at least one daily practice that keeps us conscious of our connection to our deepest, truest self. Our being, not our doing, is the source of our true identity. Our being, not our doing, is the source of our self-worth. If our doing does not flow from our being, from love force, it will have limited power to heal and transform. As you've probably heard me say before, that daily practice that keeps us conscious of our connection to unconditional love may be prayer, meditation, yoga, spending time in nature, creative expression, or simply spending some time each day away from our digital devices. What we call that source of love in us is not as important as staying conscious of that connection. Staying conscious of that connection to love force is crucial because that love force gives us all the courage, compassion, and creativity we will ever need to offer our authentic selves and hold space for others to do the same. Let's take 5 minutes to share around the table on that question. Do I trust that I am enough? Thank you. I'm so sorry to interrupt these great. It's such a beautiful thing to see you all connecting around these tables. But we have come to the third question that could increase our awareness of whether we live more from love than from fear. Do I trust that my cafe community is enough? Woo! Woo! Love it. Love that. A distraught Indian mother walked many hours with her 12-year-old son to visit Mahatma Gandhi. She told Gandhi that her son was literally addicted to sugar, that he would beg, borrow, and steal just to ingest more sugar. Gandhi listened carefully and then said to the mother, "Go back to your village and return to see me in 2 weeks." 2 weeks later, the mother and son returned. Gandhi said to the son, "Stop eating sugar." Exasperated, the mom ranted, "Is that all you're going to say? If that's all you were going to say, why didn't you just say that 2 weeks ago while we were here? Why did you make us walk all this way to say that now?" Gandhi calmly responded, "Because 2 weeks ago, I myself had not quit eating sugar." We need each other. Gandhi needed to hear this boy's struggles in order to choose a new form of recovery in his life. And the boy needed Gandhi's direct wake-up call to stop eating sugar. Bell Hooks wrote, "Rarely, if ever, are any of us healed in isolation. Healing is an act of communion." We know that. We know isolation is deadly. What we do in each of our cafe communities is hold space where isolation is shattered. We know that when trauma is stuffed or repressed, when losses go ungrieved for years on end and hurts go unforgiven, they can emerge in ways that are destructive to ourselves and others. One of my favorite quotes from the ancient Nag Hammadi text found in Egypt says, "If you bring forth that which is within you, it will save you. If you do not bring forth that which is within you, it will destroy you." All recovery cafes are places where all of us can bring forth that which is within us, both our wounds and our gifts. When we sit across from each other in our recovery circles, our staff check-ins, and around the tables in our cafes, deadly isolation is broken. Tribalism and trauma are transformed. It doesn't happen overnight, and it requires the harnessing of all our community partners. But our cafe communities are places where deadly isolation is made toast, and healing communion is made possible. You can count on that, and that is enough. We may be plagued by budget shortfalls, staff shortages, policy changes related to the government funding we depend on, and a different HR challenge each week. Those realities will always plague us, but there is a reality deeper than the rational that we can trust. The reality that when we show up just as we are, not having it all together, and bring forth our authentic selves, both our wounds and our gifts, something happens that is beyond any one of us. The miracle of healing communion. The Sufi poet Hafiz put it this way: I sometimes forget that I was created for joy. My mind is too busy, my heart is too heavy to remember that I have been called to dance. Called to dance the sacred dance of life. I was created to smile, to love, to be lifted up, and to lift up others. O sacred one, untangle my feet from all that ensnares. Free my soul that we might dance, and that our dancing might be contagious. Now let's turn to our table mates and share on the third set of questions. Do I trust my cafe community is enough? What are we doing that is more than enough? Thank you. Okay, I wish I could bottle up all the connection happening in this room. So wonderful to see this meaningful connection happening. I'd like to close our morning reflection time by sharing something deeply personal. I am conscious of all the trauma people have endured or are enduring right now over the world and in this very room. And I wanted to share that in April, I acknowledged the 10th anniversary of falling 30 feet into a pit in a rainforest in Indonesia, shattering both of my legs and a few other body parts. And I missed hitting my head by a couple of inches on one of the 3 boulders at the bottom of the pit, which would have resulted in instant death. As many of you know, what followed that fall were surgeries, time in a wheelchair, and ongoing physical therapy. What most people don't know is that for the past 10 years, I have suffered from a damaged nervous system and post-traumatic stress symptoms related to that fall. Over these past 10 years, I've done deep dives into that trauma in pursuit of deep healing through many modalities like EMDR, IFS, CBT, neurodynamic breath work, and more. Oh, so many acronyms. It was like diving to the bottom of the ocean to explore the remains of a sunken ship. With the help of skilled and loving guides and authentic community, I was able to bring some compassion, forgiveness, reframing, and release to not only the sunken ship related to the fall, but to some of my earlier shipwrecks as well. I'd like to close with 3 things I feel I know more deeply than ever before. 1, love cannot wait until we feel we have it all together or until we feel we are enough. Love longs to give itself away, not just through us, but as us. Second thing that I experienced more deeply than ever before during these deep dives. Forgiveness of ourselves and others is key to the healing of our shipwrecks. This is nothing new to any of you who have done and are doing deep healing work. When we forgive at deeper and deeper levels, all the way down to the basement, thinking we have forgiven all there is to forgive, we may discover another elevator with buttons that take us to parking level 1 and parking level 2. We have to keep forgiving at deeper and deeper levels if we want to be free. And if we want to hold space for others who long to be free. And thirdly, I said it earlier, we have to stay conscious of our connection to the love force of the universe if we are to embody alternatives to systems that oppress and exclude. That is what every single one of you is doing. I am in awe of each one of you. There will be enough for you to fulfill your calling. You are more than enough, just as you are. Your cafe community is way more than enough to hold the miracle of healing communion. Thank you for living way more from love than from fear.